So, all right, guys, we got to get this one right. On three, we're going to say, welcome back to Extraordinary Thoughts Put on Their Mind. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back to Extraordinary Mind.
And we back.
That'll work right there.
Yeah.
And we back. And we
Yeah.
back. And we back. And we back. And we
Y'all did y'all best. And that's all that matters.
Now, before we get started with this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this episode, share this podcast, and if you can, do me a favor, head on down to the review section and leave an honest review, because this podcast was dedicated to helping us become a better version of ourselves. And I don't know what that version is, but I know that just like we need a little bit more money, just like we need a little bit more sleep, just like we need a little bit more of anything in life, we deserve to be a little better than what we are right now. What's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcaster with the extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. I'm your host, Demetrius Thigpen, also known as Meech Speaks, and welcome back to another episode of Extraordinary Thoughts for the Ordinary Mind. I tell you, man, it's been heavy on my spirit. You know, it's been really heavy on my spirit, man. Like, I don't think people really understand. Like, I'm a mindset speaker, yes? I wrote a book about mindset. And people still don't understand how important mindset is to me. Like, I'm a firm believer that with the right mindset, you're able to do the things that you really want to do. Like through the right mindset, I'm not trying to say that you're going to be Superman or anything like that, but I'm trying to say is that if you have the right mindset, man, you're unstoppable. And the last 3 years, man, it reaffirmed exactly why I'm so heavy on mindset. Because I've seen people give up in situations where I know if they just would have believed in themselves just a little bit more, they would have been able to keep going. I've seen people quit when I know for a fact they were at the finish line. And as we sit back and we talk about quitting, you know, and I promise you this ain't got nothing to do with the episode. This is just me clearing the excess thoughts off my soul real quick. But as we talk about quitting, man, like I'm a firm believer that a lot of us weren't born quitters. Let me rephrase that. None of us were born quitters. As many kids as I got, I've watched them grow. I've watched them overcome things. I've watched them learn how to walk. And each time they learned how to walk, they will fall down, pick themselves back up, and keep going. I know for a fact they weren't born a quitter. And being in the military, I've seen people that odds weren't stacked in their favors and they were able to prevail. I knew for a fact he wasn't born a quitter. So when I tell you that you can do it, I'm not lying. When I tell you that you can become a better version of yourself, I ain't lying. But the one thing that would help you get there, you feel me? Like the one thing that would help you get there, you just got to bet on yourself. You really got to bet on yourself. And I don't know who needs to hear that, but you really got to bet on yourself. And when I say, when I talk about betting on yourself, man, like I really need you to have that confidence that you would have if you were betting on somebody else. Like if you knew for a fact that they were going to win the situation, the confidence that you would have if you walked up to them and betted on them, I need you to have that confidence about yourself. I say that because 3 years ago, I betted on myself. I betted on myself 3 years ago. I said that I was going to start podcasting, create a podcast dedicated to helping us become a better version of ourselves. And in that podcast, you know, I learned to navigate through the trenches of personal development, doing the best that I can and being able to translate them over into my practical thoughts. I've been on stages. I've wrote books. And I still, as I look around, man, I still can't believe that I took that bet. And as I sit back, man, like I ask myself, man, what would it be like if I never started? Where would I be if I never started? Who would I be like if I never started? And then I think to myself, like, how many times do we start something and then we end up quitting? You know what I'm talking about? Like we get started and we've all seen it on January 1st, you know, New Year's resolution. They get started and then they end up reverting back to who they used to be. So with that being said, this episode right here, right? Like this episode right here is dedicated to the person who's trying to get started and doesn't know exactly what's holding them back. You know what I mean? He's trying to get started, but it's some shit that's holding them back. You feel me? And this episode is also for the person that was able to get started, right? He was able to get started, but the pressure got to him. The effort got to him. And he ended up reverting back to who he was. So with that being said, as we sit back and we talk about how to get started, I feel like we got to acknowledge the three things that usually hold us back. And those three things that usually hold us back is fear, permission, and time. Now, I'll start with time because we've all heard about this before. You know what I'm talking about? Like, motherfuckers will wait for the perfect time. Like, we'll perfect time some shit to death. You know, that's why that's honestly reason why we always wait to January 1st to say that we want to get our shit together. That's really why, because that's the perfect time. It's a new year. You feel me? The stars align. Let's go ahead and get it going. And then you end up reverting back to who you was anyway. You at the club, you waiting for the right moment to go up to that person, and next thing you know, somebody else go up to the person and you standing there looking crazy. You was waiting for the right time, but it never came. We'll wait for the right time in a sense of, man, if I just had the right amount of following, man, I'll be able to start that. Man, if I was just a little bit older, you know, I'll be able to get that started. Man, you know, I'm just waiting for the right moment so I can have the equipment that I need. 3 years ago, I had the right moment. And although I didn't have the equipment, I did not have the following, I had the right moment. And for those who don't understand, that right moment is the moment that you start. I grabbed a gaming headset, I downloaded an app on my phone, I walked in my closet and started yelling in it. And that's how I created my first episode. I didn't wait for the right moment. And the thing about the right moment is that the moment that you get started, you feel me? You learn as you go. I don't think nobody really understands that. You really learn as you go. You can't have experience of something that you ain't never experienced. And as you learn as you go, that's when you get the equipment. That's when you get the following. That's when your shit starts to grow and you realize like, man, I had been waiting so long to get started and look where I'm at now. That's one of the biggest stoppers because we always sit back and we wait for the right moment. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but the right moment is right now. It's right now. The next one that I always think about is permission. When we sit back and we talk about permission, it's not in the sense of, hey man, you're allowed to do this. You know what I'm talking about? Remember when you used to have to ask your mama if you can go outside? And then you have to ask your friends if they could ask your mama if you can go outside because your mama was going to say no to you, but she'll say yes to them? That's not the type of permission. We look for permission in things and in people. Hell, we look for permission in certain situations. You feel me? Like we'll look on the clock. We'll look on the clock and wait for it to say 11:11, 4:44, 2:22, and say to ourselves, "Damn, that's the right moment. I need to go ahead and do something." That's bullshit. You waiting for a group of people to tell you that, hey man, you should go ahead and get started. You should go ahead and get started, like as if their opinion means more to you than your own opinion. Let me rephrase that real quick. You waiting for a group of people to tell you what you should do, like you waiting for a group of people to tell you to execute on what God gave you, like God ain't already gave you the message, like that shit ain't been boiling inside of you, like you ain't already know that this is what you supposed to do. But the reason why you want to wait for them in order to get started is because you don't believe in yourself. Like I'm gonna keep it a buck, man, because one thing about my honesty is that my honesty is real. You don't believe in yourself. And you looking for reassurance. You looking for another credible source. You looking for another reference to tell you to do something that you should have been doing. You telling that you need somebody to tell you to do something that God been told you to do. And the reason why you waiting for permission is because you just don't believe in yourself. So I'm gonna just be the first one to tell you is that you got it. You got it. This is your gift. This is your purpose. This is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Stop playing with me. Stop playing with them. Stop playing with yourself. You need to go ahead and get started. You don't need permission. Because if you keep waiting for permission, you're going to finally come across somebody who's going to tell you that you shouldn't do it and you're going to believe them. And I know y'all remember that story with my grandmother. How she had asked me what I wanted to be. And I told her that I wanted to open up my own restaurant. And she told me, baby, they don't make enough money. Then she came back 2 weeks later and asked me what I wanted to be. I told her I wanted to be a comedian. She said that comedians, do you really want to be a joke for the rest of your life? Because I took her word as law, I would spend the next X amount of years of my life not knowing exactly what I want to do. And I don't know exactly what my life would have turned out to be if I didn't grab hold of the steering wheel and start steering down my own journey. You feel me? Start guiding myself down and taking a risk on me. I know y'all know the story about how when I told everybody that I was going to join the military and not a soul believed me. Not a soul believed me. And if I didn't believe in myself, I don't think that I would be here. The next one, and I feel like this is the biggest one, is that fear. You know, fear will stop us in our tracks. And the thing that I have an issue about it is that we try to act like fear is small. You feel me? Let me rephrase that. We try to act like we're ashamed of being afraid. We try to feel like as if like we not who we are because we're afraid. And I just really want to let you know that the idea of becoming a better version of yourself should scare you. The idea of starting a new fucking venture should scare you. Becoming an entrepreneur, knowing that the fact that most entrepreneurs don't even make it within their 5 years, that shit should scare you. Taking the next step in a relationship, that shit should scare you. Anything that is new that you don't have experience in, it should have a little bit of fear inside of there. I'm not saying that you should be controlled by fear, but I feel like you should acknowledge the fear. Ain't nothing worse than hearing somebody try to, minimize the fear like that ain't the thing that's stopping them in their tracks. You ever had a conversation with somebody and you talk about fighting? And as you talk about that conversation, as you have that conversation with them, they always say things where, I don't try to fight, man, because, I see red. Next thing you know, somebody's pulling me off, man. I just black out. Bro, if you scared, just say that. You feel me? Like, if you scared, just say that. You know what I mean? You ain't gotta prove nothing to me. Like, if you scared, just say that. That's what y'all sound like when y'all try to minimize what y'all fear is. You trying to create content and you talking about, man, I just don't do the TikTok, Instagram thing. I don't do social media. Okay, man, I didn't know you had a master's degree in adultology. I didn't know that. But you afraid because you about to put your content out there and you gonna get judged. That's what you really afraid of. You're afraid because you're gonna have to see people in real life and you gonna be judged by them. That's what you're afraid of. You hear people talk about starting a new venture and they'll say things like, well, the timing just ain't right, or, that's just not my thing. I like to go ahead and go to, bro, if you afraid of starting a business, bro, just say that. It ain't for everybody. It ain't for everybody. You hear somebody making excuses about a relationship and why they won't take it to the next level. Bro, if you're afraid of commitment, just say that. If you're afraid of giving it your all, just say that. Bro, if you're afraid that it's not going to work out, then just say that, because all of those fears are valid. And I just really want somebody to hear that, is that your fears are valid. They valid. But you should not be controlled by them. So now that we talked about what stops us from getting started, let's talk about what stops us from finishing. Now, there's a saying that I always say, and it's always guided me during tough situations. And it's, Rome wasn't built in a day, but each day they built Rome. And I forgot where I heard it from. No, I think I know where I heard it from. It was at a Denny's, you feel me? And I saw it on a cup. I saw it on a cup and I thought it was hilarious. But there was so much truth behind it. Rome wasn't built in a day. And I know we've all heard that, to have patience, that the city of Rome wasn't built in a day. But the second part is that each day they built Rome. Each day they built Rome. And I really want somebody to put that into perspective real quick. Each day they built Rome. On the days that it was cold, they built Rome. On the days that it was hot, they built Rome. Pulling them heavy ass stones across wherever they had to go. Each day they built Rome. And Rome probably started off just as nothing. And over time, they built Rome to what it was. And I really want somebody to really understand exactly what I'm trying to say, because that's one of the reasons why a lot of us stop doing what we're doing. We stop moving on that journey. We stop growing. We stop trying to become this better version and realize that it's easier to be in our comfort zone, because we forget that each day we got to build Rome, on the good days, on the bad days. Do you know how many people had to be committed to that situation? Do you know how many people had to bet on that situation right there? That, hey, man, we gonna build this city. We gonna see it to the end. And that exact same type of commitment is something that you gotta have with yourself.
You gotta have with yourself. Earlier, I mentioned about betting on yourself. And I don't think people ever understand what I mean, man, because my analogies be all over the place sometimes. They do. But when we talk about betting on yourself, I really need you to hear this. Is that you gotta bet on yourself as if that's not even you, but you know that they gonna succeed. You know what I'm talking about? Like, imagine, I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I grew up there, ate there, lived there, family still there. I'll never bet on the Detroit Lions. I'll never bet on them. Detroit Lions ain't never won a Super Bowl, and I don't think they're going to win one in my lifetime. So if somebody came up to me and said, hey, man, I bet you $1,000 that Detroit going to go to the Super Bowl, I will be on the opposite end of that bet saying, no, they won't. No, they won't. As a matter of fact, let's double down on that. You hear that confidence? You hear that conviction? That's the shit that you got to have when you talk about yourself. That's the shit that you got to have when you tell somebody, hey, man, this year I'm going to lose X amount of pounds. Are you serious? Yes, 100%. That level of conviction, man, when somebody come up to you and they say, like, and they ask you what your goals is and you say, I'm going to start a business, you got to have that conviction about yourself. Hey, I'm going to create this content. You got to have that conviction with yourself. Hey, I'm going to take this relationship to the next level. You got to have that conviction with yourself. Because you know that you can do it. You know that you can do it. When we talk about betting on ourselves, man, you really got to take into consideration that if you had put money on that, you would be emotionally invested in it. You would be mentally invested in it. Just like I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, I got family there. And my stepfather, he a diehard Lions fan. And every Thanksgiving, I see him watch that game. Shit, every time the Lions on, I see him watching it. And I hear the hooping, the hollering, the yelling. And every time the Lions lose, he act like this the first time he ever saw the Detroit Lions lose. Like he ain't know that was about to happen coming into it. But the level of commitment that he's involved in the team right now, he's emotionally invested. I really need you to hear me out, man. Like, a reason why a lot of us ain't finishing what we started is because we ain't emotionally invested in it. We ain't mentally invested into it. We ain't physically invested into it. We might have put a couple of dollars down on it, but we ain't really financially invested into it. So let's switch gears a little bit. Imagine if that was not you. Imagine if it was somebody else. I don't know. Maybe it was your son. Maybe it's your daughter. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's your husband or wife. And they wanted you to believe in them. They wanted you to believe in them, and you believed in them. You believed in them so much that you put down the money for them. You believed in them so much that you was there every single day to hear what their problem was and get them through it. You put this time and effort into it in order to get them to the next level. Let me rephrase that, to see them go to the next level, just for them to sit back and say, I quit. I'll kill them. I don't know about y'all, but I'll kill them. Because that, it's time wasted. I believed in you. How you not going to believe in yourself? And I bring that up because that's what your future self be looking at you every time that you don't commit. That's how your future self looks at you every single time you decide that you're not going to go down that journey. Every time you decide to walk away from it. Your future self like, damn, bro, if you just would have saw this through, man, like, this is what we could have been. This is what we could have had. Now you about to go back to your comfort zone. I need you to have that type of conviction. Next, I just really want to switch gears. Because as we sit back and we talk about betting on ourselves, man, at some point you eventually are going to have to double down. And when we talk about doubling down on yourself, that's another one of the reasons why most people don't go to the next level. Let me rephrase that. They don't finish what they've started. Was it easy for me to, once I got over the fear of being judged, was it easy for me to go in a closet with a headset and record? Absolutely. Was it easy to get the name out there at first? 100%. But at some point I had to realize that, I'm going to have to get a recording studio. I'm going to have to get mics. I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone again. And I don't think a lot of people understand where I'm about to go with this one. For those who don't know, I recently had a conversation with Austin Alexander, and congratulations on his success and the fruits of his labor are starting to show. And our first episode, we sit down, we having a conversation. In the middle of the interview, he hands me these microphones. And he looks at me and he says, I see you doing this podcasting thing, and I really wanted to gift you these. Just promise me that you don't stop. Tears in my eyes. It felt good to be, you know what I mean? Like, it felt good when somebody else believe in you. And earlier I talked about waiting for permission, but I'm going to tell you right now that, this ain't the permission that I'm talking. This wasn't permission. He wasn't giving me permission to keep going. He was giving me reassurance. He was giving me reassurance like, bro, man, I see your effort. I see you working hard. I want to see, I want to double down on you. I want to bet on you too. He betted on me. I already betted on me. So I went on ahead and doubled down. And when I say double down, I'm driving in my car, wiping my tears out my face. I look down at the mics and I say, how the hell am I going to use these? Later on, I took a loan out. I needed a laptop. I needed sound woofers. I needed lighting. I needed the things necessary to take it to the next level. A lot of people are afraid to take it to the next level because they don't want to double down on themselves. A lot of people are afraid to take it to the next level because they're afraid to leave their comfort zone. When we talk about fear, man, I can't stress this enough, man. Fear will consume you. Fear will consume you, and it'll halt you and it'll revert you. You're saying to yourself right now, oh man, I'm good where I'm at. Why take it to the next level? What if I fail? You'll stop and you'll never go. And the one thing about fear, and I just really want to just take a left turn on this conversation, is that fear left unchecked will turn to jealousy. It'll turn to jealousy. And when I say that it turns into jealousy is that a lot of times, like, we won't have accountability with ourselves when we talk about fear. We refuse to say that because of this is the reason why. Let me rephrase that. Because I am afraid, this was the reason why I didn't do it. We just say that there's X, Y, and Z reasons of why I don't do these things. But meanwhile, somebody else overcame their fears and they stepped forward out of their comfort zone, and now they're taking their thing to the next level. And when I say that fear left unchecked turns into jealousy because you have no accountability in your actions, you are looking at them upset, like, why it wasn't me. I'm better than them. Why haven't I gotten to the next level? That's because you're afraid to. They weren't. When we talk about fear, man, like, fear will stop you from starting and fear will stop you from finishing. When we talk about doubling down, I really need you to understand that at some point you're going to have to double down. And the last thing that stops us from finishing, is because we don't see progress. Earlier, I mentioned that Rome wasn't built in a day, but each day they built Rome. Each day they told people that Rome was going to get built. And I need you to really imagine yourself on the ground floor for a second. Imagine seeing Rome get built. Every single day you come in, you move a stone. Slowly that building starts to get bigger. Those streets, they start to get paved. Next thing you know, you seeing horses and shit. Do you think that happened in one night? That happened in multiple nights. And next thing you know, they looked around and was like, oh man, Rome really did get built. That's how you got to look at it with your progress. You really think that you're going to do one gym session and you really think that you're going to go in the gym, do one session, come back, and all of a sudden you got the body that you've been dreaming about? If it was that easy, everybody would fucking do it. You really think that you're going to meet the love of your life, get down on one fucking knee to a stranger, and they going to say, I do? If it was that easy, I don't think anybody was going to do it. Let me rephrase that. You really think that y'all always going to have a happy marriage? You think that you're going to drop one video and all of a sudden it's going to blow up? That's a less than 1% chance. Come on now. Each day they built Rome. And you got to have that exact same patience with your craft, your dream, your aspirations, and your journey. Each day they built Rome. And next thing you know, Rome was built.
And just like that, another extraordinary thought left this ordinary mind. I hope you enjoyed this episode half as much as I enjoyed making it. Stay tuned every Monday as we bring you another episode. And lastly, don't forget to like this podcast, subscribe to this podcast, and share this podcast because this podcast was dedicated to helping you become a better version of yourself. And I don't know who needs to hear that, but just like we need more sleep, just like we need more money, we deserve to be a better version of ourselves. Stay hungry, stay motivated. I'm out.